So we know that a great client relationship doesn't start with the first deliverable. It starts with onboarding. And the best agencies know that smooth kickoffs don't just happen, they are strategically designed. Because when your onboarding actually works, your clients feel confident from day one, expectations are crystal clear, and projects launch without the usual fire drills. So hopefully no headache for you and peace of mind for them. So on today's session, we'll be looking at the three onboarding breakdowns that lose clients before you even start, how to design welcome sequences that set the right tone and expectations, the sweet spot of client communication between radio silence and info overload, but also then ways to shift from being a new supplier to being what is termed as a kind of strategic partner. Okay, before we jump in, those who don't know me, I'm Steve. I'm one of the co-founders here at the Agency Works. I've been working with agencies for 23 years now, and as usual, I'm delighted to be joined by my webinar co-host, Kate, who is a principal consultant at the Agency Works, but also as somebody has had years experience working at previous agencies in a number of different operations and client services roles. So thanks for joining once again, Kate.
Thanks for having me again.
No problem. Right. So what's the challenge? So you win the pitch, the client's excited, your team's excited, contracts are signed, budgets agreed, and it feels like the start of a great partnership. Then onboarding begins. Deadlines slip, key information is missing, the client's unsure who to contact, and your team lacks context. So that initial buzz cools as small missteps creep in. So instead of a smooth handover from pitch to project, the experience feels shaky and the first impressions start to unravel. So that once enthusiastic client starts hesitating. Emails cool, deadlines drift, work starts to trickle back to their old agency. And it's rarely because of bad work or your lazy teams, it's poor first week experiences. So early gaps, confusion, or silence signal deeper issues and plant doubt that's hard to reverse. So nailing those opening weeks is critical. Clear contacts, clear next steps, and quick wins build confidence, keep momentum, and turn a new client into a committed partner. So, what actually goes wrong in those first few weeks?
Well, the first one I'm going to talk about is something I'm sure 99.9% of project managers have experienced, the dreaded handover breakdown. So picture this. You're talking with your new client, you ask an important question and they respond with that steely gaze, I've already told X about this. Busy clients don't want to repeat themselves, and honestly, who does? But it happens all the time. Critical details get lost between sales and delivery. Maybe the client told your pitch team they need the project live by Black Friday. Somehow that never reaches the project manager, or maybe they walk through the brand guidelines in detail during the pitch, and now they're explaining it all over again to the designer. Clients hate this, and we all hate it. It makes them feel like they're starting over with a brand new team and it sends the wrong signal. Because when the information slips through the cracks, what clients really hear is our internal systems aren't working. And when that happens, they start to question everything else. So the importance of familiarity in handover. So as humans, we like and actually crave familiarity. So if you think about it, if someone sells to us, builds that relationship, and then just disappears, it doesn't feel great and nobody wants to be ghosted. And that's exactly what happens when there's no proper handover. It leaves clients asking, who's my contact now? And how does this actually work? That's why setting clear boundaries is essential. Clients need to know exactly who to go to for what. For example, all project-related inquiries should go through to the delivery team. If your client doesn't know who to call with questions, then they probably don't understand how your agency actually works, and that confusion it creates anxiety. So if I give you a simple example, during sales, your client's main contact is Sarah, just picking on Sarah because she's my sister. But now suddenly they're working with Mike. And they're not sure if Sarah is still involved or if she's just disappeared. And they don't know who to call with questions, and they don't really understand how your agency is structured. And from the client's perspective, that uncertainty is unsettling because at the end of the day, what they want to know is, am I in good hands? Which brings me to action paralysis. The contract is signed, everyone's excited, and then nothing, radio silence. The client is waiting for you to tell them what to do next, and you're waiting for them to send you something over. That initial excitement from closing the deal slowly evaporates while everyone sits around wondering what's supposed to happen now. This is why a strong handover process is so critical. Make sure you have dates in the diary, or at least a plan to set them during the handover meeting, even if the official kickoff is sort of scheduled later. Have a timeline ready, even if it's just a top line overview that you'll flesh out later. And doing this reassures your client that they're in safe hands and keeps that early excitement alive for the relationship ahead. And here's the good news. These breakdowns are completely preventable. They're not caused by bad people or bad intentions. They're caused by bad systems. And the even better news, systems can be fixed.
They can. So here's how to design that handoff properly. So the first thing we look at is creating a sales to delivery briefing document that captures everything. So that could be project goals, key dates, stakeholders, maybe preferences they've mentioned, concerns they've raised, perhaps disc profiling the team, even down to kind of personal details that help you build that rapport. Next, it's about building a capacity check into your sales process. So before you send any timeline confirmations, check your team's actual availability. For that, you could use tools like the Synergist Capacity Dashboard, because your clients would rather know the real timeline up front than be disappointed later on. And I know, Kate, you told me a story how that happened in your previous agency.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens. I think it probably happens in a lot of agencies as well. Sort of, you get that new shiny client, and actually, it's your current client's work that gets pushed back rather than the new client. And then what happens is you end up really annoying your current clients, and really that's where your bread and butter is actually your definite revenue. So that's something you definitely want to
Want
protect.
to avoid. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. Next up in that process is about scheduling an internal meeting to review the brief and address any outstanding questions. So this ensures the brief is clear, comprehensive, and agreed before moving forward. And then finally, it's around scheduling a proper handoff meeting where the sales team walk the delivery team, including the client, through the brief, answering any questions. This reassures the client that nothing has been missed and gives delivery full context. But that's not all. Your handovers are only the start. The key to creating that great first impression is in those all-important touch points across the first few weeks.
Exactly. So, how do we design that process? And I've got a framework here that really works. And it just goes through some touch points. So, touch point one would be the immediate confirmation. So, within 24 hours of signing, they get a welcome email that says exactly what happens next with specific dates, actions, and responsibilities. Include a simple project kickoff checklist showing what you'll need from them and when. And then we go into touch point two, the proper introduction. So I touched on this a little bit earlier. This is where you introduce their new team and explain how everything works. Potentially create a who's who document that clearly shows your team structure, everyone's role, and who they should contact for what. So there is absolutely no ambiguity. Touch point three, the expectation alignment. So this is usually a call where you walk through the project timeline, your process, their responsibilities, and how you'll communicate. Everything gets documented and shared afterwards. And then the last one, touch point four, the kickoff catalyst. This is whatever gets the actual work started, whether that's a strategy session, a discovery call, or receiving their brand assets. The point is, it's scheduled and it happens quickly. Each touch point builds on the last one. The client always knows what's coming next. No information dumps, no confusion, no wondering what's happening. And you can template most of this. Create email templates, create a standard agenda, develop a checklist for what information you'll need to collect and when. You could even use a fantastic system like Synergist and use their Kanban functionality, which will help you manage all the onboarding tasks and documents and make sure nothing is missed. And we know that the key to building and maintaining a good relationship is getting the communication just right, just like Goldilocks on the screen, which I'm glad has replaced the meme of myself grinning at the front of the picture.
Mhm.
And you need to find that sweet spot between that radio silence and the information overload. So, how do we get our comms just right, just like Goldilocks? So, the first one, ask about their communication preference. So, think like Love Island, love language type thing. And some clients potentially want daily updates, other prefer weekly, some want phone calls, others prefer email. There's no one size that fits all. So ask and find out that love language.
What the hell is love
Yeah.
language?
You're showing your age there, Steve.
Ah, you will, yeah, we'll carry on. No idea what you're talking about. The next up, set regular updates. So that's about consistent updates. So we know that builds confidence and reduces that are they doing anything worries. Uncertainty is what makes clients nervous. So we need to agree an update rhythm during the onboarding process. So it might be every Tuesday you'll get a project status email, or we'll have a 15-minute call every Thursday. So it's about telling them what each update will cover. So whether it's progress, whether it's upcoming milestones, decisions needed, it means that your clients know exactly when they'll hear from you and they'll never feel left in the dark.
And communicate when there's nothing to communicate. So if it's that Thursday meeting that Steve just mentioned there, and nothing major has happened since the last one, you'll still send the update with something a little bit less, like this week we wrapped up research and next week we start the wireframes, just something, brief, because that is better than just silence.
Next up, we know that your clients are busy. If they have to hunt for what's urgent, they can potentially miss it or delay responding. So this might seem pretty obvious, but using clear subject lines, action required, brand assets, versus something like, for your information, here's your draft wireframes. In emails, put action needed at the top and then a separate section for context or background. And if you're sharing tools, make sure you flag tasks assigned to them differently from updates that you're logging just for transparency. And also keep action requests concise: who, what, where, and when. That hopefully will result in faster approvals, fewer missed deadlines, and less frustration on both sides.
Absolutely. And on top of your regular updates, remember to do regular check-in calls to see how everything is going. So they might want every few days to begin with. That might drop down to once a week or even bi-weekly once the project is underway.
Then finally, on the client side, we know you're rarely working with just one person. There's marketing managers, there's finance controllers, you've got procurement, senior leadership, end users, and they all have different priorities and pressures. So if your communication is tuned only to your main contact, other stakeholders can feel left out or underinformed, which weakens your relationship. So we need to map the stakeholders early. Ask your main contact who else will be involved in the approvals, budgets, sign-offs, or using your deliverables. Find out their priorities. Finance might care about budget burn and invoicing, your project sponsors about milestones and risks, and the day-to-day users about practical instructions or deadlines. So tailor your updates and provide high-level dashboards or summaries for your SLT, maybe detailed task lists or instructions for operational contacts, and clear financials for procurement and finance. But we also need to think about offering support proactively. So, for example, you could provide slide decks or talking points to your contacts so they can use them internally when briefing their SLT, or providing documentation that helps finance processes your invoices faster. The result is that you're not just communicating with the client, but equipping each stakeholder to do their job better. So your agency becomes easy to work with, builds allies across the business, and cements its position as a trusted partner rather than just another supplier. So we've covered this in a previous webinar before, but how do we move from new supplier to strategic partner? So this is where the onboarding gets really powerful. We know most agencies focus on deliverables, but the best agencies use onboarding to fundamentally change the relationship from transactional to a strategic partnership. And we know strategic partners get retained, get bigger projects, and get referrals. Suppliers, on the other hand, get replaced when something cheaper comes along. So how do we make that shift? Here's just a few recommendations. I think the first I'd look at, and again, this might sound obvious, but showing genuine interest in their business beyond the project. So it's asking questions about their challenges, their goals, their industry, and not because you're trying to sell them something else, but because you actually want to understand their world. Next, it's about bringing in insights, not just execution. So don't just take the brief and run with it, challenge assumptions, share relevant case studies, bring ideas that go beyond what they originally asked for. Then we need to start thinking like an insider. So start using language like we instead of you when talking about their business. Say our project instead of your project. And these small changes signal that you're on the same team. Next, if it's possible, try to deliver an early win. So find something you can accomplish quickly that exceeds their expectations. So maybe it's a competitive analysis they didn't expect, something that makes them think these people really get it. Then we need to introduce them to your full capabilities gradually. So share relevant expertise when it comes up naturally. So if they mention a challenge with email marketing, mention that you help other clients with that too. And then finally, make sure you arrange a strategic review to share insights and ideas. The goal is to become the agency they come to with questions, not just the agency they hired for a specific project. Okay, as usual, we like to summarize what we've just covered in the last kind of 18, 90 minutes or so, and leave you with our three big takeaways.
So the first one is nail the first few weeks. So successful client relationships don't start with the first deliverable. They start with a well-planned kickoff. Most agencies lose goodwill in the first month because of three preventable breakdowns. Information falling through the cracks between sales and delivery, clients not knowing who their main contact is or how the process works, and the initial excitement stalling into radio silence. By putting clear systems and capacity checks in place before you start, you'll give your clients confidence from day one and launch projects smoothly.
And the second one is about a strong onboarding experience is definitely intentional, not improvised. So map out a sequence of touch points for the first few weeks, perhaps a welcome email within 24 hours of signing, a proper introduction to delivery team and a who's who's guide, and an expectation alignment call covering timeline, responsibilities, communication style, and as Kate mentioned previously, that kickoff catalyst session that actually gets the work moving. You can template your emails, agendas, and checklists, and manage the whole process in a Kanban or CRM tool so that nothing slips. Clients always know what's coming next and never feel overwhelmed or left in the dark.
And as Steve just went through just a few moments ago, shifting from supplier to strategic partner. So onboarding is your best chance to reposition yourself from new supplier to trusted partner. Show genuine curiosity about their business goals beyond that immediate project. Bring early insights, ideas, or quick wins that demonstrate you understand their world. And use collaborative language like our project to reinforce that you're on the same side. Done well, this builds trust and unlocks the bigger projects, longer term retainers, and the referrals, all because the relationship foundation was set correctly at kickoff. Remember, great client relations start with great onboarding, and great onboarding doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design.